Hey everyone, I am here on a video call with my CEO of Science People, Scott Edwards. Say hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again.
So I thought it would be a really fun way to talk about video calls on an actual video call. I have most of my video calls with Scott, and we have found a rhythm, a system that just works. And so we put together 15 tips for you on what you should do before your next video call. Scott, are you ready to get started?
Let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay, so the first one is actually more of a Scott question. This is all about getting the right gear. So talk about the most advanced setup to the basic setup. What gear do people have to have before a video call?
Let's do it. So obviously, camera, headphones, and a microphone is what you need. Those are the key ingredients, right? And most laptops these days come with those default ingredients. I'm using my default setup right now, just my webcam on my MacBook. A side note, the funny thing about Macs is they only have a 720p, which is like the lowest form of HD webcam. So you may want to go ahead and upgrade to some equipment similar to what Vanessa has. She has a 4K resolution web camera, which is probably way too much. You don't want to have people seeing you in 4K most of the time.
I do.
But the default resolution for most webcams that you might want to look into is a 1080p. And that's what the common resolution of a lot of high definition TVs are. And computer displays are definitely able to display that. And it will just give your video feed a much crisper look most of the time.
So we wanted you to see the difference. So my video has a Logitech HDR camera. I'm using a Yeti microphone and a ring light. So you can kind of see the difference. And then Scott has just a normal computer setup, nothing fancy. So Scott, you say something.
And I'm again just using the standard microphone. Now I am sitting in front of two really nice big windows here, so I'm getting a lot of nice light. If you're in a more of an office environment, kind of a smaller space with not much windows, definitely recommend a front light on you. It's going to make your visage appear much more clear to everyone else.
Perfect. You're actually bringing me really nicely into my next step, which is kind of your placement. So step number 2 is backup. Now, I don't mean back up your computer, although you should be doing that too. I actually mean take a step back. So the biggest mistake people make on their video calls is they do them like this. No one wants to see that. No one wants to see that. Also, we really like to see your hands. So I try to make sure that at least you're seeing the upper torso and chest, so that when I'm making hand gestures, you can see what I'm saying, you can kind of explain it. And that way it gives a little bit more of my body language in the shot. And this is really easy also for reading body language and reading facial expressions. So you can see we're both a little bit farther away from the camera. Really quick one. Scott, actually, you bring me what you mentioned earlier about lights. So step number 3 is to think lights, camera, action. You mentioned lighting in the front. Talk us through this. You're kind of an amateur photographer, so you know all about light.
And that's really all it is you always want to light your subject in any photo or video, right? And so you want to not appear as if you're in a dark room. Fluorescent light also looks not as good. Usually you think about warm versus cool light. But our next tip is really don't worry about it too much. This all is serving a purpose, which is communicating with the other person on the other end of the line. Don't stress about the lighting. Don't stress about the equipment too much. Yeah, you might want to upgrade it if you're going to be doing a lot of video calls, and we probably are going to be doing a lot of video calls, but it's much more about substance.
Here's my rule of thumb. If someone can see your smile, you're good. Like, that's all you need to know. If someone can see your smile, you're well lit, you're good enough. And that's exactly right. Step number 4 is focus on substance, not appearance. One survey showed that people rated themselves less attractive when they appear on camera. We all hate seeing ourselves on camera. And 30% of respondents said they spent half the video call looking at their own face. Mm-hmm. So here's what I want you to think about. Once you get your gear set up, the reason we started with those tips is you should set it and forget it. You got your light? Sure. You got a mic? Great. And then just go into your substance. That's what people are really on the video call to see.
Speaking of looking at yourself when you're on a video call, it's actually a pro tip. My pro tip, so I'm going to call it a pro tip, is move your own thumbnail of your own video as close to the source of the camera as possible. So another tip we have further down is about looking at the green dot or the red dot or whatever color dot your webcam is. Try to move the thumbnail of your own video as close to that as possible, because you're always going to be looking at yourself. It's just human nature. We can't avoid it. So lean into that, move it as close to that source of that webcam as possible. And then it looks like always you're talking to the people on the other side of that camera.
And you can even shrink the screen. So instead of having a giant screen, like your face on there, you can actually shrink it down. So it's really small right at the bottom of the camera. So you're closer to actually making eye contact, and you're not as big, right? You're not like, whoa, look at my giant pores. So I also like to shrink that down. I love that tip. Mm-hmm. All right, step number 5. Avoid video awkwardness. This is really important. So one of the reasons people don't like video chat is they feel like there are awkward silences, or they're not sure what to say, or they're half reading body language. They can't quite get things out the right pacing. So what I want to do is I want to teach you the best way that you can prevent all kinds of awkwardness: preparation. Here are a couple of things that I want you to prepare before your call, and you can actually use this as a checklist. Here's your checklist. Tell everyone in your house or in your office you're going on a video call. The most awkward thing is when someone barges in, when the dog is barking, when someone rings the doorbell. Put something up on your door that says you're going to be on a call. Tell your kids, your dogs, your pets that you're going to be on a video call. That will save you a lot of awkwardness. Second, do a spot check before you log in. So you don't have to worry about your appearance once you're on the call. Just make sure you have nothing in your teeth. Make sure that you don't have anything weird showing. Make sure that you like your background. Do that before you log on. The worst thing that happens, people get on a call and they're like, right? So make sure you do that before you get on the call.
Most video softwares have the setting to, by default, when you join a meeting, turn off your audio, turn off your video. Highly recommend this. Zoom does this. A lot of them do it, or they give you a preview before you go into the room. Do that, because you're going to always join before you're ready, or you forgot something or whatever. Make sure you can proactively turn on things when you're ready, not when the meeting starts.
Exactly. Okay. That's like such a good thing. Go into your settings ahead of time. Also ahead of time, sweat the small stuff. Go to the bathroom, grab your coffee, make sure that your water actually has enough water in it. Get all the things you're going to need so you're not getting up half in your pajamas, running downstairs. Oh, 1 minute, I'll be right back. That creates a lot of awkwardness. Scott mentioned looking at your software settings. Look at your software settings to see if you can mute your video or mute your microphone when you get on. Also look at your settings to see if you can get a filter. Filters are amazing. They touch up your appearance. Zoom is using one right now. Don't we look nice and touched up? The next thing is to prepare for your first impression. So the next awkward thing that happens is people log on like this. Oh, hi. I want you to be ready when you turn that camera on. So the moment you hit video on, you're ready to go. You're making eye contact, you have a nice smile, and I always start every video call with the smile wave. Hey everyone. I do almost every YouTube video like that. I think it is the most positive way to just get that first impression over with. And for some reason on video, more than even in person, people stumble into that first impression. I want you to own it. I want you to control it. Know who's on the call so you can confirm the right people are there. That's especially important for lots of calls where you have lots of people on the call. Gather your links ahead of time. Sometimes you're popping things into chat, documents, links, photos. Gather those all ahead of time so people aren't watching you search the web while you're on your video call. Create an agenda and send it out ahead of time. This will help your participants also stick to the agenda. Like for example, I sent Scott the outline for this video beforehand. That helps keep us both on track so we don't go off on some tangent. Turn on your listening ears, make sure you are fully tuned in. Close your email, close your text. It's so easy to get distracted on video calls. I'm gonna be like right here together. Otherwise you miss something and that's super awkward.
One of the worst things in any meeting, and it happens, sometimes you can't avoid it, is you're asking a question of a person and they were just tuned out. And you have to replay the last 5 minutes of discussion to that person. Don't be that person. Pay attention.
Don't be that person. Oh, that is like the absolute worst. The last tip here, which is kind of funny, is I don't know if you have a resting angry face, where at rest you look like you're angry. I would think very carefully about your listening face. When I'm on video call, I try to just have a little bit more of an engaged face or an up face. People know that I'm paying attention. I'm not angry. I'm not thinking about something else. So think about also how you listen. That's the only difference between a video call really and a phone call is people are watching you as you're listening. All right, step number 6, give yourself a social boost. So video can also be used for bonding and rapport. Don't just think of video as getting things done, getting to your agenda, getting to your task. I highly recommend spending the first few minutes of video with an icebreaker, a conversation starter. Scott, do you want to do a little conversation starter?
Let's do it, sure.
Okay, so one of my favorite ways to start a video call is to ask people what they're most grateful for. So this is a great way to just open up something positive, something easy. So Scott, what are you most grateful for?
I'm grateful for this technology right now. I mean, think about how the world would be different if this was even a few years ago. We're able to really seamlessly interact with each other, not as we would be in person, but in a different way, in a difference. It's not better or worse. It's just a different way of communicating. And that's pretty amazing that we can continue to run our business and our lives through this medium.
I love it. Mine's kind of a sister to that, which is I'm grateful for you watching. Wherever you are in the world, I'm able to reach you. We're able to share tips, teach, help. And so I'm so grateful for your clicks, your watches, your views, your subscribes. I feel like I have a dream job and that's all thanks to you. I'm very grateful for that. So start off with some kind of social bonding time at the start or the end of your videos, or the middle if you're like us. All right, step number 7, really simple. We mentioned this, look at the dot. So when you're in a video call, look right at the camera, whether that's a white, blue, green, red dot. Don't spend time looking at your face. If I spent the entire time talking just looking at my face, it wouldn't be nearly as good as with you. That's an easy one. Step number 8, wave and smile. Again, your first impression should always be the, hello, so good to be here. Hi, everyone. I like to start on the wave and smile, and I like to end on the wave and smile. It's your go-to first impression and last impression. Know that because you don't have to even think about your body language during those intros and outros. All right, step number 9, start with your happy voice. So, Scott, do you like the sound of your own voice?
No, it's always the worst thing whenever you hear yourself on voicemail and video. It's just never a good thing.
Okay, you are not alone. Most people do not like the sound of their own voice. And I finally learned to like the sound of my own voice when I discovered something about my maximum resonance point. So we have lots of videos on vocal power and maximum resonance point. But what I want you to think about is always saying hello or your first few sentences on the out breath. So listen to the difference. Hello, all the way at the top of my breath. I go really high. I don't like the sound of that. Versus hello. So this is the difference between very high power and very low power. High power, you go nice and low. I'm relaxed. I have a deep out breath. Low power is when I hold up my breath, I tense my shoulders, I tense my jaw, and I say, hello. So I want to make sure that you're hello, and whenever you're sharing or delivering something really important on video chat, you're delivering on the out breath. Shoulders nice and low, lots of breath, lots of room and space. Try that, Scott. Try to do a nice deep hello.
Hello.
Try your high hello.
Hello.
Hear the difference? Same person, totally different. The high one sounds more nervous and more anxious. The low one sounds like, okay, like he's confident, he's got this. So it's a really, really easy secret vocal power trick. All right, so vocal power tip. Step number 10. This is my most important tip. Are you ready? You need to designate a driver. So the reason why most awkwardness happens on video calls is because no one knows who's leading. It's a team call or you're a partner call. And so what happens is you have, hi, oh, and no one knows who to talk. You have people talking over each other. You should either be the driver or you should assign the driver. So being the driver sounds like this. Hey everyone, welcome Scott. Welcome Allison. Hey Rob, thanks for joining us. Okay, looks like we're all here. I'm gonna get this kicked off. I sent off the agenda a little bit earlier. Let's start with what are we most grateful for? That's a way that I welcomed each person. I made it very clear who was coming, who was to speak, and then started our agenda. If you don't want to be the driver, your best thing is to designate a driver. So something like this, everyone's logging on, and you can say, hey, Allison, I know that you sent out the agenda for the call. Do you want to take lead on this? That's a really nice way of having purpose and making sure that there's always a leader. Now, in the rare scenario where you have a lot of people talking, the other thing you can do here is you can have a driver for each question. So for example, let's say that someone asks a question like, so who's going to work on this project? And everyone's like, you can say, hey, well, I'm working on the project for next week. So Sarah, I know that you had told me earlier that you were thinking about working on it. Do you want to take it? So you can also pass the baton to people in actual questions. Does that make sense, Scott? Is that good, the driver?
It does. Yeah, that's always, I mean, we've all seen it. It's on conference calls as well. It's even harder on conference calls when you step on each other, you're trying to talk at the same time. If you publish or just if there's a known driver, that will minimize those. And there's nothing that disrupts a meeting more than when people start stepping on each other, say, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go. So you can avoid that with this tip.
Exactly. It's my favorite tip. If that's the one you're going to try immediately, that's the one I would do. All right. Step number 11 is super easy. Use your hands. We love hand gestures. It's one of my favorite things about video calls. That's why I wanted you to back up your camera to make sure that people could see your hands. When you're explaining things, try to not be holding a pen. Don't be typing as you're explaining things. Put your phone to the side. Use your hands to explain things. If I say, I have 3 different ideas, your brain is like, no, Vanessa, it's 5. And that's because it's been shown that our brain gives more weight to nonverbal gestures. And so we look at hands to get more explanation. So if you're explaining something, you're teaching something, be sure to keep your hands free and explanatory. What's your favorite hand gesture, Scott?
Well, I'm actually going to do one tip here around seat posture. So if you have a setup like me where your laptop's on your desk is usually lower than your face, you're looking up. You haven't seen my hands much during this video because they're mostly down here. But what you can do is raise the armrest, if you have armrests on your chair, as high as they possibly can go, probably more than is comfortable for you if you're normally typing, but that's going to put your hands up here much easier. So it is easier to use your hands, speak with your hands and show them. Otherwise, they're just off the screen the whole time and it's hard to see. So just keep in mind how you can set yourself up for minimal effort to try and get these hands up here at the same time.
Pro tip. I love it. All right, so if we're talking about body language, we talk about the hands, we have to talk about the face. Step number 12 is to learn to decode facial expressions. I think the best part about video is you get to read facial expressions. Dr. Paul Ekman found that there are 7 universal facial expressions and you should learn how to read them. This gives so much context behind what people are saying. It helps you be so empathetic. It helps you be a much better communicator. Once I memorize these facial expressions, I will tell you the way that I communicated completely changed. We have a ton of videos on this and a free tutorial at scienceofpeople.com/face. So you can actually practice those 7 micro expressions and learn how to read them on video calls. You might see some really interesting things. All right, number 13, dress to impress. So I think it's also important to make sure you know what works on video and what doesn't. Some really easy rules of thumb here is no tight patterns. If you have tight patterns, it creates that like ripple effect. You've ever seen that on the morning news when someone's wearing a pattern, it looks like it's like moving on their shirt. There's nothing more distracting than that. That's the first thing. The second thing is nothing that makes noise. Clanky bracelets, clanky earrings, or a necklace that you play with. You'd be shocked at how much that sound picks up on video chat, where you don't think you're hearing it very much, but all people are hearing on the other side is click, clink, click, clink, click, clink, click, clink. So make sure that your choice of outfit is silent. Kind of a weird thing to say, but it really matters. Any other clothing tips for us, Scott?
No, this is a bummer for me because I'm always casual. But no, it's absolutely true. Particularly in a work environment, you have to dress a certain way most of the time. If you dress down at home, that's not your work environment, and so people are going to kind of assume, maybe even though they shouldn't, assume certain things about it. So you are conveying a message by what you wear on video call.
Absolutely right. And by the way, casual is okay if that's your work environment, if that's your home work environment. Like I always I like to talk to teams about what they expect, and then you know that you're all on the same page. All right. So number 14, send a letter of thanks or a follow-up. After a video call, if everyone's paying attention and no one's taking notes, you might be a little bit unclear about what the action steps are. If you are the driver, or if you have a note taker, send an agenda, send a follow-up agenda, so a post agenda, what you want to do next, as well as a thank you note for everyone who attended. It's a really nice way to wrap up a video call and to make sure that you caught everything in the video call, especially if someone was teaching or there were a lot of notes. You always want to have a note taker, and then you want to share that with the group afterwards. Never underestimate the power of a follow-up. I cannot tell you how many times I've taken notes on things of what I think was said. I've sent out a follow-up saying, hey, here are all the notes from the call. Make sure this is all correct. And they write back and say, oh, actually that percent was different, or that number was different, and we heard two different things. So always send a follow-up with a thank you. Last tip here is know thyself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I know that I love teaching on video. I absolutely love to share slides and I love to share ideas. So what are your strengths? Are you a teacher on video or are you a listener on video? If you're a teacher, try to bring in slides. Scott, I know you've really had a lot of benefit with slides in some of your past work.
Yeah, they are great visual cues. So you, instead of having people look at you, explain with your hands or looking at your facial expressions, you might want to put up a set of slides. You might want to share a video. You might want to use some visual aids. All of these video call services have screen sharing abilities. They even have, a lot of them have drawing services. Maybe you're an artist and you want to share your ideas that way. There's tons of ways to use aids so that you aren't the focus of what everyone is looking at necessarily. You can put up a slide and use that instead.
Exactly. I really think that video is one of the best ways that we can communicate in a virtual workplace. When in doubt, try to video over the phone, because you can see facial expressions, you can see body language. I also think it's a great way to connect because you actually produce oxytocin through the camera. So us talking to you, we give you a little burst of one of my favorite chemicals. Where's my oxytocin? Down there, my favorite chemical of connection, and that really helps us feel bonded. I hope this video has helped. I hope it's helped us feel bonded. I want to thank Scott for taking some time with me today to share some of our tips on this video call.